If I stand this far away, are we good? Okay. My name is Joe Schrader with SPN. We are here for the Sanborn Boulevard Utility and Street Improvements, Phase 2 and 3. Pre-construction. A little higher? You bet. How's that? Good. Tonight I'm going to talk about traffic control sequencing, and mainly how the general public can access information about the project. But first I'll touch a little bit on why is this project needed? Why are we here today, and why is our summer going to be kind of a pain in the Sanborn area? For starters, because it's a pain in the butt now. There's potholes. I'm sure everybody tries to avoid that street if at all possible. So what we plan to do is make it white, smooth. We're going to improve drainage. We're going to replace utilities underneath the street, and we're going to want people to drive on that street again rather than avoid it. Contacts for the project. Again, my name is Joe Schrader with SPN. I'm the project engineer. We have Jeff McCormick here with SPN. He's the project manager. Eric Prunty is working on a bridge project that's in conjunction with this, the Sanborn Viaduct Bridge. And then John Rennick with H&W. He is the prime contractor on the project. Project was bid mid-January. Then again, it was awarded to H&W. And again, bridge improvements are being done in conjunction with this project. And just a reminder to everyone right away, notices of scheduled water or sewer interruptions or street closures will be distributed at least 24 hours in advance to those items being completed. Now, there will be probably, we don't want there to be, but there might be some emergency situations on this project where the 24-hour notice won't happen. But where there are emergency issues, we'll get that taken care of as soon as possible and get everybody up and running. Here's the project location. The project will be completed in 2 phases. We are on the 2nd and 3rd phases of a 3-phase project. Phase 2 will be completed this year, 2019 construction being completed in the month of October. Phase 3 is slated for a 2020 construction and be completed roughly in September. The remainder of this presentation is going to focus on Phase 2, which will be constructed this year. And this just kind of shows you the layout of the area that we're talking about. Basically from 1st to the mid-block between 7th and 9th. The existing one-ways now between Raleigh and Minnesota will be converted to 2-ways to help with access as part of the project. So we won't have to worry about going the wrong way on a one-way. Everything will be 2-way. In Phase 2, we'll be split up into 4 sequences, and that helps with access to properties and to help with movement of the general public. We are going to try and get through the 1st and Sanborn Intersection through the first duration of the project, and I'll get into those sequences in more detail here in these next couple slides. Sequence 1 is starting next week with a bore, with the majority of the work starting April 15th and completing May 31st. And that is the contractor schedule, and it should be noted that this contractor schedule is subject to change. I can float in there. We gave the contractor a certain set amount of days to complete that work. And these improvements will bring us up to 1st and Sanborn, which sequence 2 completes. When that is completed, 1st and Sanborn will be open to traffic. During that phase, we will route traffic around on Minnesota and utilize 5th as a through area to get people around the closed intersection and past the bridge. And then sequence 3 is the remainder of the project. Again, First and Sanborn will be open to traffic, and at that point, to route people around through to the bypass, we will utilize Minnesota for that. That's an approximate May 20th start, and then that will be the duration of the project. It is mandatory in the contract documents that either 7th or 5th must remain open, either or, while there's being work done on either 5th or 7th. This shows the truck traffic route. We don't want trucks running through the city of Mitchell, so we do have signage up to run trucks to the bypass and around the city. We will have business signs again this year, similar to what was on phase 1 of Sanborn. Individual business signs will be on Main Street and Minnesota, with arrows directing them to the businesses. And there will also be overall business signs, which are put on the main arteries to let people know where they can find the businesses. And with that, I'll turn it over to Eric Prunty to talk about the bridge improvements.
Good evening, everyone. The bridge improvements, this actually began a couple years ago when the city recognized the need to reconstruct Sanborn, also recognized some needs on the Sanborn Bridge that wanted to get some repairs done, and to minimize the impacts to the public. It would be great to do it at the same time Sanborn's under construction. The city was successful. They received a big grant from the South Dakota DOT to fund 80% of this bridge project. The bridge project itself is going to entail the replacement of the approach slabs going onto the bridge, about 20 feet of surfacing to tie, concrete surfacing to tie the new approach slabs to the new concrete. The steel railing that's on the concrete barrier, many of you probably have noticed it's got many bows and whoopsie-woos, and it has some issues. That's going to be replaced as part of this. The chain link fence on the sidewalk, the outer railing, that's going to be replaced. The rail itself is going to be painted because it's going to be a different color than what it used to be. And then the expansion joints will be replaced off the bridge ends. That is where as you can see in the picture, that's where a majority of the problems have been occurring is with settlement and the expansion that's occurring. The expansion joints are also going to be replaced in the concrete barrier wall as part of this project. The project's going to have bridge deck grinding, abrasive blasting, and a 2-coat polymer epoxy deck seal is going to be placed on it. So that's kind of a nutshell what's going to be happening on the bridge project. It was recognized early working with SPN. We wanted a combination bid, one prime contractor control the work. And so in both the bridge and the street project, there's time provisions. And with the bridge, one lane of traffic is going to be open at all times, with the exception of when the sequence 2 is underway, in which basically first is going to be closed. So when first is closed, the bridge will be closed, and at that time the contractor minimum is going to have to replace the approach slabs and any other work that he can get accomplished while it's closed. That's great. Otherwise, he's going to have to do it with lane closures, so. With that, I don't know if I have anything else to add unless there's any questions about the bridge project in general.
So first will be closed from 20th of May till the end of the project in October. So being able to go over the bridge?
No.
There's a day count on that area, so we're looking at about the 20th of May to probably mid to late June
Okay.
for first. And the closure on the bridge will coincide the same time with that closure on first. So once first is ready to open back up, the intent is for the bridge to be opened back up. Any remaining work we'll have at that time should be the outside railing or chain link fence. So the outside lanes might be shut down at most, but the actual bridge will be open itself.
And in conjunction with this project, there will be weekly meetings every Tuesday. The first meeting will be this Tuesday, 9 a.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. They are open to the public, so anyone's welcome to attend. And if you have anything, if the general public has anything they'd like added to the agenda, I do have my contact information. I'll have business cards available after the meeting if anybody would like to take one of those with them. And those meeting minutes will be posted to the city's website. So we want it to be open to the public. We want the public to know what's going on, and we want them to be involved throughout the project. So with that, we do have our contact information listed below. I'll have my card available up here up front for anyone that would like it. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. Yes?
Earl Vanderveer from First Lutheran Church. I got about 60 kids in a daycare center at the church, and I would appreciate more than 24 hours notice when you're gonna shut off the water. Is there any way we can do that? Get a heads up on what is scheduled, a week ahead, a couple days ahead, something?
Most notices, we will have at least a week ahead, just because of sequencing coming through. The only other aspect of that is if we do run across a utility that, say, wasn't happened to be marked or ends up getting hit, that's where he was, I guess, when he said if we can't give the 24-hour notice. I'm not saying it won't happen, we obviously don't want it to happen, but when it comes to shutting down the water services, especially with the businesses and with the daycare centers, we try to give as much notice as possible.
Thank you.
With the new utility improvements, you guys replacing the water shut-off valves, putting new sewer cleanouts behind the sidewalk, or what are the cleanouts?
It doesn't matter.
They have the cleanouts.
So there will be new curb stops installed at the property line, but there's no plan for sanitary sewer cleanouts at the property line.
So that connection will be, so the sidewalk is next to the curb, will that connection be under the sidewalk, or will it be behind the sidewalk? I'm just thinking if, some of these are older houses and that sidewalk is right next to the road. I mean, if we have to do a make repair, we have to pull those side,
It's the intention to do them as close to the back of the sidewalk as possible. So some of them might be a little further, some of them might be, tucked in. It just depends on the situation they're dealing with at the time.
I got a question. Rick Boleen on 4th Street. What are you guys gonna do for dust mitigation when this is going on for the homeowners in the area? Are you guys gonna run water trucks, or are we just gonna put up with dust?
Projects like this, we usually bring our water truck on site and
Okay.
we run the water truck up and down.
So my driveway is exactly on Sanborn. I don't have, I'm in the middle of 4th and 5th and no back access to the property. Where am I gonna park? How am I gonna access my home?
There will be some special circumstances where we can work with property owners to get access to the front if that is their only access. As far as parking, it will be side street parking.
So I heard a rumor that you're gonna make Fourth Avenue a two-way street, is that correct?
For the duration of the project, that is correct.
All, will that be from the Sanborn all the way to Main? Or just in the one block, Duff to Sanborn,
It would be through to Main.
through to Main? Okay.
Given your location is a dead end. So,
Yes. You've talked to all the property owners and informed them that we're gonna have a two-way avenue on Fourth? They might like a heads up.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that was approved at a city council meeting.
Greg, did you hear anything?
No, I didn't hear anything.
So it'll be we're on Fourth as well, it'll be a two-way on Fourth.
How far west of Sanborn is
We're
the two-way?
just south of the church.
Here, I can back up to that slide again.
It just scares us on the one-way streets that, when you talk about two-way traffic, because we were blindsided with this several years ago. And it just scares us when anybody talks about changing from one-way to two-way.
The reasoning for the two-way is just to allow people access going the wrong way on a one-way. Like I know I drop my kids off at First Lutheran, and to access Fourth from, I believe it is Duff, you would have to go the wrong way in a one-way. And then I believe the reasoning to going to two-way was just to allow people on those dead ends to come through, for access.
That's just a temporary thing while the construction's being done, correct?
That's all that's been.
I believe so, yes.
How far west is it going? The two-way.
To Minnesota.
That don't make any sense. Everybody that lives in town knows that they're one-ways. I don't know why making a two-way would make any sense at all, other than just in that one block from Sanborn east or west. I don't get it.
Convenience. To people, the main route is going to be Minnesota on some of this.
There's
So
any traffic on Minnesota, or I mean, 4th Street, 3rd, 2nd, other than just people that live there.
again, the intention was convenience, or
You know, the reason everybody's concerned about this is not everybody parks snugly up against the curb. And on the one ways, you have people parking on both sides of the road, and it's kind of narrow in there just for like one car, more or less two, at the speed they come through. You know, I understand the speed limit in town is 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, but somebody ought to tell some of those people that are coming down that street, because I'll guarantee you they're going a lot faster, so there is a safety concern, that's all.
thank you.
How long, I know construction is construction, but, do you have any idea how long the water will be shut off at these times?
With the tie-ins, there's a few intersections that we jump with the water main to tie in. The intent is to shut the water off, usually after 8 o'clock, usually when people kind of get up, get going in the morning, go to work, and then get our tie-in done, get that turned back on before 5 o'clock, as long as there's no hiccups with making the connection. And then we'll take off the new pipe. The new pipe's got testing requirements to be back teed and flushed before then we can make the service connections after that. Service connections are usually anywhere from a half hour to a 3-hour shut-off. And those will be another notice once we do the service connection. A lot of the stuff, we try to get it dug up, exposed ahead of time, especially with old utilities. You don't know if it's a thicker cast iron pipe or what pipe you're dealing with, so that way we got the connections on hand. So we try to minimize it to a 4 to 8 hour shutdown. So we do it during the typical work hour day is what we try to work with. So there are provisions in there if we can't maintain the existing water service, we do have to put in temp water to residents.
You said you would provide notice?
Correct.
What is the form of notice?
We either put door hangers out, we'll put those out a couple days ahead of time, or if you are home, we'll let you aware of it, but it's usually a door hanger or something on your front door.
How far away from Sanborn will people be affected by the water outages?
That I'll have to work with the city on. A lot of it's gonna depend on the current valve placement. So if we're coming through the intersection to make a tie-in, some streets got valves that are fairly close or within the construction limits. Other ones might reach a half block. So I just gotta work with the city on it to make sure we get the proper notice out.
So if you're 2 blocks away, you might be safe.
You might be, correct.
Yes?
But the dates you give us, okay, like for the signs, road closed, are you gonna close the street before those dates? Or, because I know a lot of times they'll work ahead and nothing's going on.
These dates they're coinciding with when we're actually anticipating to close the road and start doing removals on it.
Okay.
Yep.
So if our driveway is halfway between Duff and Sanborn on Fourth, would we be affected?
The intention is to keep those driveways accessible.
We will have signs on all the barricades that'll say U-turns. U-turns are allowed, so you are able to turn around in the street, because there'll be barricades at the end.
Is there any other questions?
I got a couple of questions. We have a gas station on Fifth and Sanborn. And, our driveway on Sanborn is approximately 40 foot. And then there's about 8 foot of gutter. And then it's open, another driveway for the alley. I was wondering if there's just any way, if it's no problem, just making it all driveway from the end all the way to the end of the alley. Without that 8 foot of gutter that's kind of.
We can address that during construction. What we try to do with every property or business when we're gonna lay in the curb and gutter, we try to contact them and let them know where the driveways are gonna be, see if there's anything they'd like to do different, and see if we're able to accommodate that request. So we will address those during construction.
Then that kind of answers my next question.
Anything else?
You said about trucks going around on the bypass.
Yep.
But how about delivery trucks? Will they be able to use the side streets?
Yep. We have stipulations in the contract, even with the contractor is required to work with businesses to ensure deliveries are made.
Is that, truck route that you've got, it goes by the bypass and everything, what are you gonna do? This is gonna happen in the summer, we're gonna have a lot of tourists going into Corn Palace. So that's gonna come down Minnesota again?
We do have the Corn Palace signs up like we did last year.
Yeah.
But the first and Sanborn Intersection is planned to be open mid-June.
Okay.
So right before the influx of when the major tourist season is. So they'll come down Sanborn as normal and take a right to Maine.
So the first street that will be open north
5th or 7th is required to be open all the time.
It'll be open all the time.
5th or 7th, yep.
What about the garbage, like in our alleys? I live right on Third, and Sanborn, you pick up my garbage in the alley between Third and Fourth. They come down and cross over Sanborn. Do you know how that's gonna work then?
So the alley runs east and west. So I would assume that the city personnel would come around instead of crossing over like they normally do, they'll just wrap around and come in from the other direction.
And it's the other direction, and then have to back out of the alley to get in onto roads, they wouldn't be able to go onto Sanborn.
Right. Yeah, there'll have to be some maneuvering in order to make all this work. If we run into an issue, I guess we'll deal with it when the time comes, and we'll let everyone know if there's a different game plan.
Who is the garbage provider in town? City. Oh, it is the city, okay.
I have city garbage, you
Okay.
know, so.
We've dealt with it in small towns as well, and even some of the people that have access on the streets, if we get far enough past, I mean, we try to implement the access back the best we can, but knowing that, you know, if we're putting gravel back over top of a dirt grade, it'll work the majority of the time, but obviously if you get a heavy rain or something else that's coming through, it's gonna be an issue. We do try to minimize that impact the best we can, but with this project, some of the utilities are gonna be moving a little bit slower, especially at the depth they are, so that's why the street is.
So maybe the garbage could be picked up in front then?
Correct, yeah, it'd be something we'd have to work out with the city.
Because my compost is picked up in front, but the garbage is picked up in the back.
Okay.
Is Third gonna be two-way street then?
Yes.
So if I could have you drive my trash 30 feet to the corner of Fourth or Fifth for the city to pick it up?
No, if you got curbside pickup or whatever, and you're down that block where the garbage guys will walk down and pull it to the nearest intersection, they'll dump it, they'll return your can to your garbage. The alleys, the garbage trucks, depending on the alley, they may, back down the alleys, but if they do back down the alleys, then they will have somebody guiding them. But you just, as far as the garbage, the biggest concern is, put your garbage like you always put it before, out front curbside, or in the back, and the garbage guys will either back down the alley and get all the garbage, or they'll walk down the alley and pull it to the street and dump it there, and then they'll return your cans. And curbside, same thing. So just put it, all the garbage you can put as normal. Recycling too. And compost. Well, figure this out.
You know, they'll be putting in more drainage outfits on west of Domino's on Fifth Street to Edmonds.
So you're saying upstream?
Like the drains, like.
A side drain like on your curb, on the curb, you know? Will you be putting in new ones there or?
Yeah, we are putting in new inlets on Sanborn.
Okay.
What about Edmonds or Fifth Street?
If you go right west of Domino's, okay?
Yep.
Will you be putting any in there, do you know?
We are not, our improvements do not go beyond basically the intersection of Sanborn. So we are improving the drainage at the Sanborn intersections, and we're tying the new storm sewer into the existing.
Okay, I have a place on the corner of Edmonds and Fifth, and it flooded out this time with the rain. Garage got it also. Another time it flooded into the thing, and I went and cleaned out the drains going west on Fifth to help, because the city didn't do it. And
We are greatly upsizing the storm sewer through that area, so there will be a larger capacity. Not upsizing that pipe going up to Edmonds, I can't say for certain if you won't see issues, but it should be better.
Thank you.
How many days do you guys expect for businesses to be without sewer or water? We're just, do we need to have portable bathroom facilities, or do we want to keep it in something else? Is it just gonna be brief periods?
Sewer should be zero.
Zero?
Yep, yeah. So, the major flow coming down through, we bypass around the services. I mean, I can tell you not to use it, I can tell 100 people not to use it, they're still gonna get used. The water, the same thing, the water's gonna be brief. It'll be for the connections we gotta make to the existing system, and then once the new system's active, to make the connection to your service.
Usually not more than 3 hours instead of.
The service connection, we usually try to keep it to that kind of, like I said, it can go anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours for like a service connection. The main line connection depends on what other utilities we're in there, what kind of pipe we're connecting to, but that could be anywhere from kind of that 4 to 8 hours, 4 to 8 hours. We try to keep it in that 8 to 4:30 time frame on a typical day.
I know this isn't your first rodeo, but will there be any problems with sewer backup or anything like that for the houses that are not too far off?
Not as long as we don't have any issues in our pipe, there shouldn't be a problem.
Of course, you never say never, but no. Well, there's no further questions. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. If there's anyone that'd like to come up and ask any specific questions, go ahead. You can talk to me or Jeff or anybody that's up here. So thank you for coming and have a good night.